Shalom Aleichem and welcome to Online Smicha. This month of Adar, it's brought in Svarim, brought in Halacha, that the mazel of the month of Adar is mazel dogim, fish. We already know that dogim have a lot of positive things. It symbolizes no ayin hara. It multiplies a lot. The eyes don't close. And in Shulchan Aruch we know that in Shabbos and Yontif, there's a specific diuk to try to eat dogim. Meichel dogim, fish food, is special in Yiddishkeit and Chassidishkeit. And it's in the month of Adar, it's symbolic in the fact that, being that it's a positive mazel, we do positive things. We all know that the simanim for the kosher fish is snapir v'kaskasas, fins and scales. Interesting that the Gemara tells us that there is no fish that has scales and doesn't have snapir, fins, yet the Torah elaborates them both. Lahagdil Torah lahadira, to give us more what to learn about. And the Alter Rebbe, in one of his Maimarim, says a phenomenal thing, that the kaskasim in Avodas Hashem, the difference between kaskasim, scales, and fins, is what is the job, the purpose of the fins, to make the fish able to swim. What is the purpose of the scales? To protect its body. So the Alter Rebbe in the Maimer says that the kaskasim, the scales, symbolize like an armor, Syrian kaskasim, and that is Maisa Tzedakah. That is the Maisa Mitzvahs. That is the Tzedakah people give. Every Tzedakah you give, every coin or dollar you give, you create another piece of the armor. The fins, however, is what makes the person, the fish, swim. In Avodas Hashem, it means to make the person elevate himself. That is not necessarily the Maisa Mitzvahs. That is the Chachma, the more intellect, the connection to Torah that he achieves. The more he learns, the more he might become uppity and arrogant in his avodah. So the Alter Rebbe says that's why to have a fish that only has fins, it's not yet a siman that he's kosher. It could lead to arrogance. If a person, however, has Maisa Mitzvahs, he has the action, he does it, he does the action, there is no person, just like there is no fish that has scales and doesn't have fins, there is no person, if he's actually doing the mitzvahs, he's not the type of person to allow the arrogance to get to him, and therefore that's also a sign, a symbol of a kosher yid. Now, in this month, perhaps this halacha issue of dogim and fish is not to be discussed on one foot, because there are so many issues. When you go to a fish store, if the fish is scaled, if the fish is skinned, how do you know if it is what you think you're getting? The fish is already colored. It looks like it's colored like salmon, so we know that today's days the coloring could be made artificially, and we don't know if they're using the right kosher ingredient to make it, etc., etc., etc. There's loads of shilas with fish. How you buy fish when it's cut up, what knife they use, and etc. But one small discussion perhaps we should talk about, and that is, I saw there is a discussion about herring. And we all know, every Chassidish Farbrengen is right away, mashka and herring. You think about the Chassidim in Russia, what do they have to eat? A little herring, some onions, and mashka. That was it. And not the elaborate Farbrengens that we have today, like a whole 5-course meal. And the question is, how are you allowed to buy herring, and the prepared herring? How far is the hechsher process, or is there any issue with buying herring? So there are two ways how herring could be bought. Herring could be bought as a whole fish, and herring can be bought sliced and already cut up. Obviously, when you buy a whole fish, is very, it's much easier. You're able to see what you see is what you got, hopefully. And the process to the herring, you yourself, to the fish, you yourself do. So it minimizes the possibility of trouble, of problems, much, much, much more. Much less, meaning. If you buy a ready-made herring, meaning to say either it was processed, the kishkis were taken out, or whatever, and how much more so if it's cut into pieces and it has some spices, you have to understand that the hechsher, to make sure that everything here is kosher, you have to rely on a good hechsher, because just like the processing of any other food, you obviously rely on a hechsher. You can't just say, oh, it's fish. What could be wrong with fish? A processed herring that has spices in, they use oil, they use onions. Every one of these things could be an issue. Oil, we know there's a major issue amongst hechsherim, how the oils are made, how far the kashrus, the supervision is. A simple thing like onions. The halacha says in Shulchan Aruch that onions are not allowed to be left overnight unattended. It has to be either mixed into our food already, and only then there's no ruach ra. Are these companies careful for such a thing? Just simple things like that. Mela, the water and the spice and the salt, mela, you don't really find difficulties with the water. And the herring, if it's sliced and the herring is salted already, now we have to be careful what knife was used to cut it into small pieces. As long as it's a cold fish and there's no spice to it, oh wait, okay, there's ways around it. There's no charifus. But we're dealing with a salted fish and a goyish knife, there are so many issues that might be aware. So perhaps when it comes a month of Adar, and I'm already shikir, it's a month of Adar, and we're thinking about the Mazel Dagim, is a month to stop and think, to make sure that our purchasing our fish, vis-a-vis herring or gefilte fish or regular fish, make sure that you study the halachas first and do the right thing.